나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교. Hello, everyone. How are you? Glad you're here. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. All right, I'm going to attempt something today. I've done Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I've done a lot of chanting about this. And I've gone back and into several different sources I have on Nagarjuna's influences, his thoughts, his collection and teachings of the earlier perfection of wisdom, the Prajnaparamita Sutras in its various forms, which he wrote about, talked about, and his own. The reason I say it this way is because not a lot of historical documents or accurate documents are, maybe I should say that differently. There are different opinions as to Nagarjuna's authorship. Some have him as an Indian scholar that existed before the turn of the millennia. Most see him as born somewhere in the 1st century AD. And certainly the Madhyamika Karika, his actual writing, credited by everyone, the middle way, is certainly agreed upon as an authentic writing of Nagarjuna. But being the excellent teacher that he was, he also taught other extant sutras like the Prajnaparamita, which has several sources. There's 6 or 8 different writings, some 8,000 lines, some 80,000, some 70 verses, some 600 verses. There's all these different permutations of the perfection of wisdom. And I've talked about them before. And they're fascinating. They're really instrumental in the scholarship not long after the Buddha's passing. And then in India from BC to AD, which is odd to use these dates because it references a guy who's credited with a philosophy that's totally, well, religions galore have spawned from Christ and all sorts of magical thinking. So to have that as a calendar date or, I don't know, time locating thing for Buddhism, it's really odd to me. But at any rate, that's the calendar we have, right? So all of that is to say that I still feel anxious. I want you to study on your own. I feel anxious talking about Nagarjuna because, again, as I refamiliarize myself with the Madhyamika, to do this kind of a format, I think could but bore a lot of people. It's very pedantic. It's very repetitive. It's kind of like, how shall I say, exhaustive. And unless you're into it, it can just sort of bog you down. And the last thing I want to do with this channel or the website or the podcast is dissuade you from practice, right? So what I decided to do, and you can comment on this, of course, is I'm going to encapsulate what Nagarjuna presents to the Buddhist scholarship. This is early Buddhism, but this is early Mahayana Buddhism, in that it goes beyond what Nagarjuna is almost like a transitional figure. He's looking at these older Hinayana texts and the beginnings of them having to evolve to later teachings of Shakyamuni in their understanding of what he was teaching on his way to the Lotus Sutra, the Bodhisattva practice for perfect and complete enlightenment, not contained within the Hinayana early distribution of earlier teachings of Shakyamuni. And so there's a couple of periods in there where thought was evolving on the basic concepts of the early teachings and lifting those concepts into much more highly conceptual ideas of the mind. I've repeated many times, Buddhism is about our mental process, how it works, how we experience the world, the universe, and so forth. So, because that question keeps coming up in different forms, this thing about self-manifestation, what the heck does that mean? This thing about the universe not existing without us and us not existing without it. I hear you. I hear your questions. John, Marcus, names escape me. Several comments, emails I've gotten where this concept just doesn't want to jive. I think Nagarjuna is an exhaustive tool that would help dissect that for you. But I'm going to try to do what I think it is I don't even want to call it a skill. It's my propensity to do, and it seems to work and be helpful. Certainly is for me. Hopefully it is for you. So, on the one hand, I want to share with you a vision that I had decades and decades ago about existence in general. And at the time, I think I was looking at going to Purdue and pursuing a research career in nuclear chemistry. That's where I was then. That was a long time ago. But I had this vision of myself consciously being in a vast, vast space. Not an ocean. There wasn't a surface. It was just space filled with little infinitesimal points of light, like I could see photons. In my head, I was thinking individual photons just suspended everywhere, right? I know that's counterintuitive because photons are energy and we perceive them, but it would be, my vision sort of saw these individual photons as quite far apart from one another. And if we were to envision that in our world here, for instance, it would be like a great fog, but not an impenetrable one. It would be very dispersed, a lot of darkness with these little points everywhere. And as I looked around, somehow I was moving through this space, and as I looked around, there were cloudy areas, like there were the little points of light were closer together. They were clustering, right? And I could penetrate one of those clusters, and as I did, it was like I entered a different space. Don't take me too literal here, just follow along. This would be equatable to a universe within this greater space. Follow me along now. So I'm in this universe, and still again, I would see even more concentrated clumps of these little points of lights. And I would go toward those, and I would end up being in a galaxy. You see where this is going? And then more dense clouds of light, would be like our solar system. And within that, there would be very strong points of light, like the sun, which I couldn't get too close to, but the other ones I could, and those would be planets. And then I would end up on Earth, and again, as points of light, not seas, greens, trees, none of that. Just everything points of light, these little photons, but they're getting more and more amalgamated, more compact, more dense. And then there would be these really strong densities, not solo light, but just these very dense, where these points of light seem to amass into lumps, all interconnected by these photons, but nevertheless concentrated. And this represented you and I. This was this grand visual idea that sprang in my head, my visual mind. And I believe I hadn't started practicing Buddhism yet. I had learned about it, certainly through martial arts and other things. I had learned certain aspects of Buddhism, not all accurate, like all of us. But, and they may have fed into this. I credited the vision more with my research into quantum. Quantum seemed to create these visuals for me. This idea of being and not being, of existing and non-existence, things being on that quantum Schrodinger probability thing where it could be there, but it didn't have to be there. There was a field, an energy, a field, a vibration, something that produced conditions and tendencies, but they would go in and out of existence and interact with others, and that would make them either obliterate or form and then agglomerate. And somehow from that study of that aspect of quantum, I came up with this visual that explained everything for me of what this is. So keep that in mind as I proceed. Because when I read Nagarjuna, and I'll read a little bit of it here just to give you a flavor of why I think I don't want to spend a lot of time reading this to a camera so that we can discuss it, because I'll probably put you to sleep. But for instance, in his investigation of time in the Karika, and this is a translation, so I don't know what the exact wording was or how he would inflect it, but we'll give this the benefit of academic scholarship. And there are 6 points he makes in his investigation of time. 1, the present and the future were contingent on the past. If that's true, then the present and the future would have existed in the past. Where's he going with this? If in the present and future did not exist there in the past, then how could the present and future be contingent on it? So how do you get to here? Do you get to here because of there, or do you get to here because of there, future, past, present? How is the past interrelated with the present? Because the present or the future isn't the past. They're not dependent on the past. But if they're here, where did they come from, if not the past? Without being contingent on the past, neither can be established. Hence, the present and the future times also do not exist. Yikes. This is where your brain starts to melt. He's just basically said past, present, future. There's no basis in reasoning to say that they exist. This is critical now. These very stages can be applied to the other 2. Superior, inferior, middling, etc., singularity, and so on can also be understood this way. These are causal relationships he's taking apart. And he's asking you, again, Buddhism is mental, what are you making permanent? Is there something to make permanent? What is permanence? Because everything is impermanent. We know that already. Remember where he's situated after Hinayana, leading into Mahayana. The thinking is already there about impermanence, right? And that things do not exist and exist at the same time. Schrödinger. Non-dwelling time cannot be apprehended. Since time which can be apprehended, now, then will be now. Now is how do we apprehend now? Since time which can be apprehended does not exist as something which dwells, in other words, it doesn't exist. There's no permanence. As soon as you say now, it's gone. How can one talk of unapprehendable time? Right. I just apprehended it, but the moment I apprehended it, it's no longer there. So I can't talk about time because it's non-apprehendable. You see the logic that he uses, right? If time depends on things, where would time, which is a non-thing, exist? If there were no things at all, where would a view of time exist? All right, so it's entertaining, and it piques curiosity. Here's another one, investigation of rising and passing, right? That's certainly an aspect of time. So you can see here that he builds. These are building blocks of thought. Passing does not exist without or together with rising. If there's no rising, how can there be passing? Rising does not exist without or together with passing. The Sanskrit terms shambhava and vibhava are related to bhava. Also, I'm not going to go into, that's just going to confuse you further. 2, how can passing exist without rising? Is there death without birth? There is no passing without rising. How could passing exist together with rising? Surely the two can't coexist. Otherwise, why would we have two separate names for them? Death does not exist at the same time as birth. How could rising exist without passing? These are never not permanent. Not impermanent. Not impermanent. I knew that didn't make sense. How could rising exist without passing? Things are never not impermanent. So how does one beget the other, since they're both non-existent? How could rising exist together with passing? Birth does not exist at the same time with death. How can those that are not established either mutually together or not mutually together be established? How does one beget the other if they don't exist together and one can't exist without the other? You see how he takes this apart? The finished does not rise. The unfinished, too, does not rise. The finished does not pass. The unfinished, too, does not pass. Rising and passing do not exist without the existence of things. Things do not exist without the existence of rising and passing. Rising and passing are not possible for the empty. And this is a big component of Nagarjuna's teaching. What the heck is emptiness? rising, passing are not possible for the non-empty also. Rising and passing cannot possibly be one. Rising and passing also cannot possibly be other. If you think that you can see rising and passing are seen by delusion. And now we're getting to the essential point. Things are not created from things. Things are not created from nothing. Nothing is not created from nothing. Nothing is not created from things. Things are not created from themselves, because as we know, there's no self-nature to anything, nor are they created from something else. They are not created from both themselves and something else. How are they created? If you assert the existence of things, the views of eternalism and annihilationism will follow. This is a critique of Hinayana, by the way. If you assert the existence of things, the views of eternalism, everything from soul and life after death, eternalism, or annihilationism will follow, then the only way to be enlightened is to get rid of everything. Nihilism. Because things are permanent and impermanent. And both those views are wrong. If you assert the existence of things, eternalism and annihilations will not be, because the continuity of the rising and passing of cause-effect is becoming. If the continuity of rising and passing of cause-effect is becoming, because what has passed will not be created again, it will follow that the cause is annihilated. If things exist essentially, it would be unreasonable for them to become nothing. At the time of nirvana, would be annihilated, because the continuity of becoming is totally pacified. I'm going to pause right there. The continuity of becoming. What is that? This speaks to you guys who are having trouble with self-manifestation, okay? Take the words apart. Look at the words themselves. Becoming. What is being? We use being in vernacular as a noun, but it's not. It's a verb, ing, being. So the question in Buddhism isn't about becoming, in other words, the next moment of being, or being, the past of be. The question is, what is be? We never look at that. We're very linear. So now I'm going to give you another visual, and I wish I had the illustrative prowess with video production to give you a nice visual look, a cartoon or something. I'm sorry, I just don't have that skill set and equipment. I don't know how to do it. So I'm going to try to do it with my hands visually. Picture I have a ball right here. It be. But consider what be is. It is a location in time and space. In the case of a ball, depending on how arduous you want to break it down, you can say that the ball, the sphere that I'm holding, is here in this moment in time and space. You can say that every particle that makes that ball is here in time and space. This is be. In order for this be to being and been, which are both sides of where it is, be, conjugation of be is, that is the first perception that we have of the ball. Now, if the ball were made of the ball, if the ball were a permanent, self-occurring, self-creating thing, then the ball would be. But that, what Nagarjuna is saying, is a mental construct. This is the duality in Buddhism. There's the thing and there's the thought of the thing, and one of them isn't based in reality. Because reality is all things are impermanent, nothing lasts, everything rises, exists, decays, passes. Everything. And that happens moment to moment. So where is this? Is this ball moment to moment? 10 billion moments just passed, that ball is. And if I move that ball from here to here, is it the same ball? Because if we truly believe, and this is what Nagarjuna is dissecting, that things exist in and of themselves, when this ball is in the process of becoming another ball over here, then I should see however many graduations you want to say, 10 billion balls from every little moment this is being should still be there as I move it to here, and I should have this huge line of balls going from here to here. That would prove that the ball exists, because it exists in this point, location of time and space, and it continued to exist in each of these moments until it instantiated here. Why is it not there? If we really understand the nature of phenomena, why isn't it being? Because that's the only way it could being. Otherwise, it's always just is. Is here, is here, is here, is here. Well, how does it do that? How does something simply appear to be, to ising, to be, without having become or being or decaying? How? Right? The logic is incredibly tight here. Think of that. Think of me walking from over here to over here and having 10 billion me's in the meantime. This is what he's saying. You can't have past, present, and future, because they'd all have to be here in order to have that. And if there's only the present, if that's what you're saying, then where did the present come from, if not the past? And where is it going? How is it being? And what is it becoming? Have I got you spinning yet? All of this is incredible scholarship and dissection of the mind. The point, ultimately, is that all this language that we have about thing, time, space, all of it, is a form of communicating an experience that we're having. And that experience occurs in the mind. And the mind is struggling, not the brain, but the mind is struggling to deal with this visual, oral, tasting, tactile, massive stream of information and organize it. Aha! What are you organizing? What are you organizing? Are you organizing the universe? If so, whose universe? Not his. Not my dog's. It's your perception. It's your universe that you're organizing. Ultimately, you, yourself, your identity, your identification. By organizing all of this perceptive experience, you are manifesting a self, which, as we know from all our study of Buddhism, is non-existence. There is no self. If there were, there would be a self here, 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 here. There is no self. And to say there's a non-self is nonsense. Because to say there is not something is to say that something was, or that something can. You can't negate something while there is no thing to negate. That's where, if you think about this too much, your brain will hurt. But this can easily entrap you into nihilism. But that's not the point here. The point here is that everything you experience in life, in samsara, in this condition, this life of linearness, of a billion balls, they're there even though our brains goes, well, just don't think about those. Just think about this one now. Right? This is our brilliant brain messing with our minds. We've found a way to swim through this, whatever it is. Even the consciousness is a construct of this. Right? We know that from the 12-link causal chain. We've known this since the beginning, the Nidana, very early teachings. We just haven't understood the implication of it. And this is what Nagarjuna is trying to dig through ad nauseum to make obvious. That liberation, that Buddhahood, it isn't something you pick up at the drugstore. It doesn't have a bunch of rules. It doesn't have any nature. It's a condition. It's a condition trained in the mind of samsara to perceive with better accuracy this massive mental construct. This construction we have in our samsaric mind that relies totally on distinctions, categorization, labeling, words. Because your enlightened mind has no need for any of, in fact, it's not that it has no need, it simply does not. That's why when he talks about bodhisattvas, he talks about beings who aren't concerned about liberating themselves from attachments, because those are foreign things. Once you clear your mind of all your attachments, then there is no longer attachment to get rid of, right? Because to negate something is to validate its existence. So once you reach the mind, this is why he calls them great beings. Because when you clear that mind of identification, then you are no longer be. You aren't ising. You are being. You are flowing. There are no words to describe that. That's why only Buddhas can understand what it is to be enlightened in your Buddha mind. You must experience it. And the conundrum is that the only way you're going to experience it, because it is a condition, is because it's within the scope of samsara. Once you leave this instantiation, this fireball of being and becoming and been and all of this, once you stop doing that, there's no Buddha. Because there's no longer a mind that needs to be released from the bondage of attachments and perceive life as a precious moment, something to experience deeply, fully, embracingly. What possible suffering could there be in that? The suffering comes from slipping into the samsaric mind of ownership, possessing, being, making permanent. Where's that ball? See, there's nothing magical in Buddhism. Because what Buddhism is about, living this samsaric life beautifully. And so one has to adopt an attitude of seeing everything for what it is. This incredibly detailed play of instantiations of energies, the life process, the points of light. Everything's a point of light. If everything's a point of light, then there are no differences. If there are no differences, what are you worried about? Oneness. As soon as you perceive yourself chanting, reading, doing anything, ing, 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 you are manifesting that self. Because that self isn't real. It's a temporary container of attachments. So, okay, we're temporary containers of attachments. Get above it. Look at it. Laugh at it. look at this silliness. Life is so funny. Right? It's a perspective change. It's a paradigm shift. That's Buddhahood. That's why Nichiren says earthly desires are enlightenment. Why does he say that? Because by the time this time period comes around, he knows people are so... greed is everywhere. We're not just attached to what we have, like this body and these teeth. We want more. We want everything that's capable of being that's existing. This mechanism of desire, craving, attachment. And Nichiren is saying, okay, you've got that. Don't deny it. Take that energy, not the goal of the energy, not the new car, or the better relationship, or nicer breasts, or whatever it is that you're craving. Take the craving energy and direct it to this mandala and chant. And with that energy, that kind of craving, demand Buddha, demand clarity, demand... and your life becomes enlightened, enlightened. not heavy, not bogged down, because your desires are quelled. And with enough time, you will cease the formation of those desires, because there won't be any purpose for them anymore. Their formations are happening where? In your mind. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. So, what is self-manifestation? It's an illusion of the mind. And that self is what attaches us. And the formation of that self is what we're ceasing. Not killing, not annihilating, not getting rid of. We're ceasing our attachment to it. We're observing it with compassion, with, oh, it's okay. Isn't that adorable that you want a new boyfriend? Isn't that adorable that you want a new car? Look at you, trying to teach Buddhism. How wondrous this is, right? How would they say it in the 70s? Lighten up. It's more Buddhist than they knew. It's a paradigm shift. The more we practice, the more that mind becomes enlivened, the more it more easily accesses this self that we've manifested. Because now we're manifesting Buddha, a non-self. That's our vehicle. That's our Gohonzon. That's our Buddha wisdom. To live this life abundantly, fully, whatever that is for you, me. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. It's very, when you're not so attached, identified, there's not a whole lot to rile you up. Makes you more calm, albeit with a silly grin on your face. I just identified something again. Stop it. Does that make sense? So this is Nagarjuna's whole lifetime of using language, words, and teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha to get people to realize how their mind is functioning at a much more profound level than early teachings, which is stop eating for a week and see if your mind can't control your hunger. See how your mind works with your body? Now, Nagarjuna is going, see how your mind is creating yourself? See how your mind is categorizing everything in the world? But he's doing it in a really kind of harsh way. He's saying, look, you believe that's there, but it's not there. How can it be there if it's not here? If it's here, it can't be there. And he takes it apart, and he's breaking some minds here because he wants them to find an answer somewhere else, because he's trying to lead them to the idea of perception of reality that is beatific, that is released from those attachments, those distinctions, because that's the illusory component of samsara in the mind. And he's trying to break it. So if you want to read Nagarjuna, please take this video as kind of a caution, where you keep reminding yourself he's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to destroy the way you're making you, so that you can remake yourself with Buddha clarity, Buddha-ness, Bodhisattva living. Because Bodhisattva is Buddha in Samsara, right? I hope that helps. I had a lot of fun talking about this. I don't know if that's good enough. If I missed something or I just sounded a little bit nuts, let me know in the comments. I'll try to address that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about next. Maybe I have this old writing of Nichiren's life. Might be an interesting thing to read. This is an old, no longer published. When was this first written? Yeah, this was written by an old Victorian, or yeah, you can really see the Western bias, but the story it's kind of poetic. It's fun to read. Anyway, let me know if you want to hear that. Otherwise, I will continue with the program, and your questions are everything to me. They help me figure out what to talk about. If you want to hear, if you really want me to dig into Nagarjuna, perhaps I can give you some titles to look for yourself. I don't think everyone's going to want to tolerate line after line after line of the Madhyamika. Synopsizing it, I think, is much more nurturing to our practice, and that's the way I'd like to keep it. So I hope that's okay. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you to my patrons and you guys. Your donations, your support is so meaningful, not only to me but to our Sangha and this school, and it's paying off. And I just nothing but pride and thanks. And stay healthy, be kind, and I'll see you in the next one. Promise. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Bye for now. Hey, thank you for being here. Did you know there's a third way you can help support this channel, and it won't cost you a cent? Yep. If you are not able to be a patron on Patreon, or use the PayPal me at .com at Sifu Sylvain, because you just don't have the financial fortune to help support this channel right now, you, as I say, always support this channel by watching, but you can also help us grow so that maybe one day we can get over 10,000 subscribers and YouTube will grace us with monetization. It's not a lot, but if you can make sure you're subscribed and share a video, like a simple one, just go into the search criteria and type monk, and you'll have a video that'll come up that's been up for years about what is a monk. You know, it's called monk, who, how, where, something like that. That might be a great introduction to somebody who doesn't understand what a monk is to begin with. It's a tool. Use this channel as a tool to help you with your bodhisattva practice, and share a video to somebody who you think, oh, I know somebody who'll benefit from watching this. And in that way, you can help us grow. And that's a really good way to help your practice along as well. So just wanted to drop that in on you, in case that's something that you might find useful. Take care of yourself again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.